We're live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Mandy Mount, and I'm the director of UC Irvine's Care Office. It's a pleasure to welcome you to UCI's 23rd annual Take Back the Night and UCI's very first virtual Take Back the Night. The Care Office provides free and confidential support services to members of the UCI community, students, staff, and faculty who've been impacted by sexual assault, relationship abuse, family violence, or stalking. Our office also seeks to end these forms of power-based personal violence by engaging our community and our campus in education, programming, and transformative action. I've had the honor of participating in this event, planning it, or supporting others in planning it for the past 14 years in a row. It's always a very special event, and over the years it's been incredible to watch it grow from just a handful of participants to over 100, and then in the past couple of years, nearly 800 people. Every year has presented a different challenge, and we've created contingency plans for all kinds of things related to social or political climates, changes in rules or vendors, or bad weather. Today our weather is perfect, but due to circumstances that none of us would have ever predicted, we've had to move our event indoors and into your homes. It was almost exactly a month ago that I told my staff that we would have one day to pack up, grab everything we needed to move and work remotely to keep us safe at home from the risk of exposure to COVID-19. We thought we might be planning to work from home for a couple of weeks, and we never imagined that a month later we would be here. This month in particular has been difficult to navigate so many changes as it's April and it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month. While awareness is important every month of the year, this month is a time of the year that a number of important programs take place on an annual basis. These include the Clothesline Project, made up of over 400 t-shirts that represent over 400 individual members of our community who have chosen bravely to document their personal experiences with interpersonal violence and hang them on the clothesline for everyone to see. This also includes tonight's event, Take Back the Night. Both of these events take place on multiple college campuses across the country, and many of them this year have been canceled due to the coronavirus and restrictions on social gatherings. We cannot afford for this event to be canceled or to lose these opportunities to hear from survivors in our community. What they have to say is vitally important, and it does not go away when we are all at home in isolation. For some, it becomes worse. Some people are not safer at home. For others, the unpredictability and the fear associated with this current world epidemic creates even more challenges in coping with trauma or obtaining the support that people need. We must continue this work from wherever we are, and we must continue to reach out. There is nothing that will stand in our way. There is nothing more important. We as a collective must find ways to continue together, to heal together, and to cultivate resilience. From the moment that social restrictions went into place, the students and the staff of the Care Office were hard at work figuring out how to ensure that this event could continue and identifying ways to make it even more accessible, to create a virtual space that could inspire and foster change that is direly needed. The staff members and the students have inspired me by doing more than I ever imagined possible with this event. And I hope that we can follow their lead and continue to think outside of the box and identify new opportunities to bring messages of hope, support, and resilience to our community in even broader and more impactful ways. I believe in my heart that we can do this. We can and we will stop this violence. We can cultivate resilience as we also cultivate kindness and respect. Together, tonight, and continuing from here, we will also demonstrate that we are not alone. There are a few people that I want and I need to thank for making this event a success and a reality. First of all, thank you, all of you who are out there for being a part of this, for joining us, for making this effort to end sexual violence and create a visible community of support for those among us who have been directly impacted by interpersonal violence or abuse. Next, I have to thank the members of the care team that took the lead on planning tonight's event. They are listed in the program on your virtual map, and I especially want to call out the work of our outreach and prevention team. Melissa Bader-Husgen, Kaylee Hayakawa, Ni Nguyen, and Eli Pascal, who are also working busily behind the scenes tonight to make the magic happen. Our committee was made up of the outstanding students in the CHAMPS, Right to Know, and VIP programs. To all of you, all of our peers, I hope you know how much that we love you and appreciate you. We see how hard you work and how deeply you care. Thank you. To the other students who have helped us along the way, to Chris Merrick, who organized a Zotfunder campaign to raise funds, and Anne-Sophie O, who's overseeing all of our volunteers. We could not do this without you either. The Initiative to End Family Violence has once again donated critical funding to support the event, and we also want to thank Associated graduate students for their t-shirt contributions. I must also share my gratitude and admiration for the rest of the care staff, for their participation, for their support, and their continuous and tireless support of survivors throughout the year. Finally, I want to recognize the very talented students who submitted the designs that are represented on our graphics, like the one behind me, and also on our t-shirts and programs, and all of the performers and the singers who've lent their talents to support and uplift this event and those in attendance. As we welcome you to participate in any or all of the elements of tonight's event, the keynotes, the virtual march, the interactive resource fair, and the speak out, I do want to encourage you to place yourself first and your needs. All of the elements of the event will still be available after tonight. We will leave them up, everything but the speak out, throughout the rest of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. If you need or you want, you can always come back to them. I hope you find inspiration and power in tonight's messages and activities, but I recognize that these are difficult topics and they may serve as reminders of personal or painful memories. If anyone would like to reach out for immediate one-on-one support, please also reference the support resources listed in the description of this live feed or in the support resources section of the Take Back the Night virtual map. Live counselors and volunteers are available to provide support at any time, day or night. You can access a link to the map, which includes information about all of the parts of tonight's event, on the live feed description, on CARE's Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or on the CARE website at care.uci.edu. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be able to introduce you to our keynote speakers this evening. They each individually serve as a source of inspiration for me, and I am glad that you will get to hear from them tonight as well. Our first speaker tonight is Sabrina Hughes. Sabrina is the Prevention Coordinator for Waymaker's Sexual Assault Victim Services and Prevention Program. In this role, she builds the capacity of the prevention program through leading curriculum development, researching sexual violence prevention best practices from an intersectional public health perspective, creating strategic community partnerships, and implementing evaluation tools for the program's community efforts. Prior to this position, Sabrina educated youth as a prevention education specialist within the Waymaker's Sexual Assault Prevention Program for 2.5 years. And she received 2 local awards for 2 Orange County high schools. Sabrina graduated in 2016 with a BA in Film and Media Studies from UC Irvine. There, Sabrina was a member and a co-coordinator for the UCI Care peer education group Right to Know. And she served as UCI's Take Back the Night Student Committee Chair in 2015. Through professional and paraprofessional opportunities, Sabrina has served in the anti-violence movement for over 6 years. Thank you, Sabrina, for being here tonight.
right, good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for that introduction, Mandy. As Mandy alluded to, being able to address you all tonight, even if it's from my bedroom and it's the first time I've properly gotten dressed in a month, it's so significant to me. My journey in the anti-sexual violence movement actually began as a volunteer at UCI's Take Back the Night in April 2013. From there, I joined Right to Know, and then in my third year, I was selected to lead the student committee for UCI Take Back the Night 2015, despite me trying to convince Mandy I wouldn't do a good job. So thank you for not listening to me, Mandy. Take Back the Night that year also took place on April 15th, exactly 5 years ago from today. So thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot. Obviously, Take Back the Night looks a little different this time around, but I'm so grateful to the student and staff organizers within CARE for finding a way to bring this event to the digital space, particularly because the theme of cultivating resilience could not be more apt for our current situation. The COVID-19 crisis has shown us in stark ways how vital it is for us to not only build resilience within ourselves as individuals, but how important cultivating community resilience is for our literal future survival. The ways in which we see this global pandemic playing out in the United States has exposed many of the inequalities upon which our society is built. It's impossible to ignore the reality now that many kids in our community depend on breakfast and lunch provided by school. That a month ago, the cost of healthcare meant many folks couldn't go see a doctor when experiencing early symptoms. That Black and African American individuals in the US are dying from COVID-19 complications at disproportionate rates due to lifelong lack of access to healthy food, clean water, and adequate medical care. And it's harder to ignore the fact that due to violence from family members and romantic partners, a mandate of safe at home isn't really safe for everyone. At the same time, this pandemic is revealing to us what is deemed essential to keep society functioning. Yes, as we might have predicted, medical professionals and firefighters are part of the crisis response, but so too are the grocery store workers, the bus drivers, the warehouse laborers, the janitors, the garbage collectors, and the farm workers. Folks who too often have faded into the background of many of our privileged lives and make possible all that we take for granted, whose work is underpaid and undervalued and looked down upon as, quote, unskilled labor, many of whom live in fear of sexual violence and harassment every time they clock into work. 2 years before Hollywood starlets popularized #MeToo, a documentary called Rape on the Night Shift aired on PBS. The film uncovered the pervasive, escalating sexual harassment and assault that low-income female janitors were constantly subjected to while on the job. As women in this workforce are often undocumented and have less formal education, exploitation was simply easier for those who wanted to cause harm. They were and are not only less likely and less able to fight back against a male supervisor or coworker in the moment, but these survivors are more likely to be intimidated by the possibility of reporting to law enforcement, or might not know their rights to report as a non-citizen, or simply might not be able to risk losing the job needed to support their families. And that's on top of the trauma of the experience itself, the victim blaming, the disbelief that most, if not all, survivors of sexual assault, abuse, and harassment are plagued with when they share their stories. After the PBS Frontline special aired, Latina janitor survivors in Los Angeles organized within the California Janitorial Union with defiant cries of "Ya basta," enough is enough. As the movement grew and the union demanded industry change, so too did they demand legislative protections. Survivors and their allies staged a hunger strike on the front lawn of the California State Capitol for 4 days, reading their stories of victimhood and survivorship until then Governor Jerry Brown signed the Property Service Workers Protection Act, Assembly Bill 1978, in fall of 2016. Now, anti-sexual harassment training is required for all janitorial staff and employers. Janitorial companies are required to register with the state to ensure compliance, and the Ya Basta Coalition has been working to bring these systemic changes to all low-income workers, to all of our newly recognized heroes of COVID-19. I always cry and my heart swells whenever I watch that video footage of those women receiving the news that AB 1978 has been signed into law. But as we know, our work continues. We know that the conditions that low-income janitorial women of color were faced with is not an uncommon story. In a country that glorifies pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and finding freedom in extreme individuality, a person's value becomes based on the identities they inhabit. Inside and outside of courtrooms, we often see less accountability for harm doers of more privileged identities, white cisgender men from so-called good backgrounds and promising futures. Meanwhile, we see a greater social tolerance of violence against those who occupy more marginalized and societally devalued identities. We know that, for example, according to Justice Department data analyzed by NPR in 2018, people with intellectual disabilities are sexually assaulted at a rate 7 times higher than those without disabilities. In 2019, the Measuring #MeToo in California report found that gay and bisexual men reported experiencing sexual assault at more than double the rates of their straight peers. And we know from the 2019 Human Rights Campaign report about fatal anti-transgender violence in the United States that 91% of reported murder victims were Black transgender women. Just like the female janitorial workers, those who are undervalued, outcast, or not protected are more vulnerable to violence and harassment. This is the culture we've been raised in and have become accustomed to. But while this unprecedented situation around COVID-19 offers us uncertainty in exposing these cultural and institutional failings, it offers us a malleable future. We don't yet know when or if things will go back to normal. So let us take this opportunity to decide what aspects of our normal we're willing to bring back with us. To lift up the wise words of activist and poet Sonia Renee Taylor, quote, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequality, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." End quote. In this moment of collective vulnerability and crisis, we are also being awakened to the ways in which we are deeply interconnected and the resilience possible when we choose to take care of each other. Even if you think you're doing nothing at all, the fact that you're watching this over YouTube rather than in person is showing love to your fellow activists. Right now, we're all taking things day by day. And as Mandy said, it's more than okay to have hours, days, or weeks without the space to stitch that new garment. So let's just start with tonight. Tonight, I encourage you to participate and take back the night to the extent that is healthy and safe for you right now. Maybe tonight you have the space to familiarize yourself with local resources or educate yourself for your triumphant return to campus or to work. Maybe in a couple days, you have space to hold a survivor's story. And when that burst of motivation strikes, perhaps dive into a Netflix documentary series or a fictional book or poetry from well-known survivors like Maya Angelou or local legends like Lady Narrator. On the days you wake up with a wealth of empathetic energy, consider reaching out to a survivor to tell them you love them. If they want to talk to you about how they're feeling, see if you can make space to listen and hold some of those heavy feelings with them. If they are unsafe at home, help them maybe form a safety plan or covertly connect them to resources. And if all they require is connection, maybe you can watch a movie together over FaceTime or play games over the house party app. On the mornings you wake up with strength in your bones, speak up when those around you make hurtful comments based on stereotypes or default to victim blaming. Right now, that might look like shutting down harassment against our Chinese and Southeast Asian community members and making it clear that COVID-19 is not a justification nor an excuse for racism. And when this crisis ends, challenge yourself to extend that solidarity into consistent action of lifting up those who are systematically dragged down and getting those green dots in by stepping up to help when you see someone in danger. Engage yourself, your friends, your family members, your coworkers, your professors, your policymakers in the fight to ensure the world waiting for us is one we all actually want to return to. My final request for you all, as Mandy said, is for you to take care of yourselves. As we've seen with preventing the spread of coronavirus, when we invest in our own healthy habits, like frequently washing our hands or staying home to rest when we're sick, we're investing in the health of those around us. Cultivating personal resilience lends itself to the work of championing community resilience. Together, let us refuse a society that accepts inequity and ignores injustice. A society that sweeps violence under the rug and blames each individual victim for, quote, what they did to cause this to happen. Rather, let's seize this opportunity to build a resilient community of collective responsibility, one that prioritizes collaboration over competition, community care over Darwinist toilet paper hoarding, and respect for human dignity over a lust for power and control. A resilient community does not give in to the hopelessness that violence is inevitable. It sets up systems and social norms that value survivors' stories, hold those who do harm accountable, and welcome conversations about respect, consent, and active allyship. So sounds simple enough, right? Should take what, a couple weeks, 6 months once we're allowed out of the house again? Maybe not. But to all of you listening who are in the middle of everything, deciding to show up for this event and to show up for survivors of sexual violence, you are the resilient community cultivators the world's been waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina, for those really inspiring words. We are so grateful for you being here tonight. Our next keynote speaker I have the pleasure of introducing is Miliana Singh. Miliana is the LGBTQ Center Orange County Healthcare and Transgender Services Coordinator for the center. She's a California transplant after relocating from Florida, but she's no stranger to an Orange County after moving from Orange County, Florida. She's passionate about uplifting and empowering the community through her outreach and building a strong sense of unity. Back in 2006, Miliana started her transition in Polk County, Florida, in a region that was not gender affirming and lacked the resources for a successful transition. Despite her obstacles, she was able to become the woman that she is today. She uses the past as a reminder of what hardship was like and fuels that into the passion that she now has to better the lives of those that she's able to affect. Miliana started at the center as a volunteer and within a year transitioned into an employee at the center. She is so excited for positive changes to come. Miliana, thank you for being here.
For having me, and this has been a very empowering evening for me, and I definitely appreciate being invited into this space, and I want to take this time to speak on the inclusion of transness, trans bodies, and why it's so important to have a face and a voice within this movement. And so a little further background about me. I had the pleasure of speaking with you all with UCI Care and getting involved. I've also had the pleasure of being able to speak on some YouTube channels for Los Angeles and Orange County. I am a survivor. I experienced sexual assault back in 2014. And I had to learn how to navigate that myself and how to become my own champion and my own advocate. And I definitely understand what it's like for a lot of trans women, especially trans women of color, to find their voice within this space and figure out how we can advocate for ourselves and what that looks like for us, as a lot of times we are disproportionately disadvantaged, and a lot of our assailants are people that we know and people that were conflicted to report those crimes and to go and see them punished, however that may look. So with that being said, I definitely understand a lot of folks are indoors. There are folks who unfortunately don't have a place in a peaceful home. And there are a lot of folks who rely on survival work in order to survive. And as a trans woman, I understand the plight of so many who have to take that route in order to make ends meet. And for those folks, I want you to stay strong and understand that this fight is not yours alone, that we're all in this together, and that there's unity and power and strength in numbers. And that going through this transition, whether it's female, female, male, non-binary, agender, we're all human, we're all bodies. But I found it really uplifting and empowering to be able to come to spaces and to be acknowledged as a person, first and foremost, as a human, but as a woman, and to be invited in spaces where there's dialogue on me too. And understanding that it happens to women just like me too. I am one of those women. It's not just Hollywood starlets who have the voice and who can push forward this movement. It happens to so many folks that don't have that privilege or not in a place of power. And so many folks that are undocumented, living on the streets, part of the LGBT community, whose faces and voices are erased in this movement oftentimes. But I want to encourage you all to continue to fight and understand that it is not yours alone, that we need to come together in this. And I was really inspired by the history of Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, who started the movement for the LGBTQ community. And without them, there would be no me. Without them, there would be no pride. There wouldn't be an LGBTQ center for me to work at and serve the community. And understanding that it was two trans women of color who started this movement, who got us to where we are, gives me so much strength to know that although times were hard in the 70s and late 60s, we still found strength and power and resilience enough to stand up for ourselves back then. And knowing that it was possible in the 70s gives me hope that we can move forward with the movement in this new millennium. And a quote that I love by Marsha P. Johnson is, and I tweaked it a little bit so that it's a little bit more inclusive of the time, but Marsha P. Johnson said, "You never completely have your right. One person until you all have your rights, and I feel as long as there's one, gay, Black, trans, brown, immigrant, queer, person who has to walk for their right, all of us should be walking for our right." And it's so important because we're all in this together. Not one person can prevail if we're all failing. So whether you're a woman, whether you're immigrant, whether you are Black or brown, you're gay, you're cis, you're straight, we all are in this together. And the fight is not done until we all have rights. And it's a basic thing of human rights. And we need to let go of socioeconomic status and caste and color and creed and just come together and accept each other within our own identities and understand the beauty in that and why it's so important. And so I want to leave you all with just the message that let's take back the night. Let's continue the good fight. Let's encourage each other. if you see someone who's in a place of, impoverishment or struggling, help out and uplift. And if you're a place of privilege, understand that and you utilize that to uplift and uphold the voices of those who don't have that. And it's because of those bodies of and persons of privilege, I am where I am now. And I definitely appreciate that. I understand how the movement worked back in the 70s and how things are now. Yes, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson fought really hard and they worked really hard, but oftentimes their voices were overshadowed by this white gay men who have kind of led the movement after them. And they were able to open doors for them to be able to walk through, and they were able to allow them to have a seat at the table. And because of the Me Too movement, although it was started by a Black woman, Tarana Burke, it was the Hollywood starlet who kind of pushed it out there and allowed for folks to really know what was going on. And so it's important for those in power and privilege to create spaces, give us a seat at the table, open the door, and allow us to come in and really flourish. And so inclusion is just so important, and I really hope you all take this time to just think of those things in ways that you can inspire and give back and help. Even during the midst of time, if you have hands, you have feet or a voice, anything, you are in a place of privilege, you're able-bodied, and you can help in some way, whether it's making masks for folks or creating meals or donating what you have. Yeah. And with that, I want to thank you all for allowing me to be in this space, and I look forward to
Thank you, Miliana, for those incredibly important words and that call to action. Our last speaker tonight is Eli Pascal, and it bears noting that all three of our speakers tonight were selected and chosen by our students at UC Irvine. They asked for all of these speakers because they are inspired by every one of you. So thank you again for joining us tonight. I'd like to introduce Eli, who joined the care office as assistant director in July of 2015 after driving across the country in 4.5 days. Born and raised in Staten Island, New York, Eli brings with them almost 20 years of experience in the fields of advocacy, trauma counseling, organizing for social change, student affairs, organizational consulting, development and fundraising, and nonprofit administration. They received both their BA and Master of Social Work degrees at Marywood University in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And in 1997, Eli established the very first Ally program at a Catholic university in the United States, which included developing the curriculum and conducting trainings. Their current focus is on driving the sustainable growth of the care office's holistic healing programs, advising and mentoring student leaders, and concurrently supporting its current programs and services. Outside of work, Eli enjoys exploring their still newish stomping grounds in Southern California, spending time with their fur babies, Benjamin and Boo, enthusiastically supporting the New York Mets, photographing historic and abandoned places, and listening to and writing music. Thank you, Eli, for being here with us as well.
Thank you, everyone, so much for having me. This is my 23rd Take Back the Night, and ironically, it is UC Irvine's 23rd Take Back the Night as well, which means I started going to Take Back the Nights when I was a year or two old. I figured I'd throw that in there because Sabrina made a joke that went over well, and I thought I would try it too, just to break some of the tension and anxiety around being on a Zoom call with all of you. For those of you who know me, I think I do a whole lot better when I can see your faces and your eyes. So I'm grateful for Miliana and Sabrina and Mandy's faces right now, because at least I feel like I'm talking to somebody. For those of you who also know me, you wouldn't be surprised that there are about 55,000 pieces of paper around me with thoughts and quotes and comments from people that I have admired and respected over the years that I tried to draw inspiration from as I was thinking about what I would share with you tonight. And one of the things I kept coming back to is that resilience is not about silver linings or pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. And that often it's, if we're brave enough, that we're gonna fall over and over again, because that's the process of vulnerability. And resilience doesn't always mean that it's pretty and well packaged and put together. Sometimes it's quite messy. And so it's a good thing in my own life I've never been afraid of handling and addressing messes, because I've certainly needed to go there a number of times. I have been at the campus at UC Irvine for almost 5 years. It will be 5 years in July. And it's not lost on me that we haven't seen an increase in the number of students accessing support at the care office, or that we don't have more students and other community members involved more so than we have ever seen before. And I credit that with messaging and outreach and inclusivity, and recognizing the importance of intersectionality in how we approach both prevention, education, and support services. And so when more folks are able to see themselves accessing a resource as safe, we're going to see that increase. And so I want to thank the staff over the years that I've been there for helping to create that safe place and making sure our students and other community members know that the care office at UCI is a space where they can come and access the support, and that it's okay to still be scared, but that we will hold that space for them. One of the quotes that resonated strongly with me as I was thinking about this evening was from Michelle Obama, who I must confess I have a little bit of an intellectual crush on. But one of the things that she is quoted as saying is, grief and resilience live together. And I took a few minutes and I jotted down some of my initial reactions to that. And I thought, yes, and I would love to have a conversation with her about this. We are all wired to self-right. We are all wired to instinctually survive. Resilience is something, and it's a capacity that we all have. Unfortunately, as both Miliana and Sabrina attested to, there are societal and institutional and governmental, and we could go run the gamut there of barriers that come up. And so resilience isn't always an equal playing field for people. So the idea of cultivating resilience, this is my challenge to all of us tonight, is know that you've had, just like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, the capacity to care for yourself, to heal, to know what's best for you all along. It's always been there. It's never not been there. You have it. Know that there are also people like myself and others in this field who understand that even though you may have had that all along, other things might have gotten in the way that are also, just like an experience of trauma, not your fault. Resiliency can be a messy process, and that's okay, because just like healing, it doesn't have to be linear either. And so I hope some of those words bring some comfort to folks as you assess and connect. And ironically enough, we're often harmed in relationship, and that's what brings us to these spaces. It's often in relationship that we heal. And how resilient is it for folks who take that step to heal in relationship again? Because we can remember that connection and safety. And there are people who are willing to help you create that. We are going to be moving on to some other segments of our event tonight, and I want to echo some of Mandy's words about how proud I am of our outreach team and the work that folks have put into this. Sometimes all the words are nothing, and sometimes someone finds just the right words to say something, and Andrea Gibson is one of my favorites. And so I want to leave you with some words by Andrea Gibson tonight, and it is a poem titled Angels of the Get Through. This year has been the hardest of your whole life, so hard you cannot see a future most days. The pain is bigger than anything else. It takes up the whole horizon no matter where you are. You feel unsafe and you feel unsaved. Your past so present that you can feel your baby teeth. Sitting on the couch, you swear your feet don't reach the floor. You keep remembering the first time you saw a bird's nest, held together by an old shoelace and scraps of a plastic bag. You knew in that moment that the home of a person could be built like that. A lot of things you'd rather throw away. You keep worrying you're taking up too much space. I wish you would let yourself be the Milky Way. Remember when I told you I was going to be a full-time poet and you paid my rent for 3 years? Best friend, angel of the get-through. All living is storm chasing. Every good heart has lost its roof. Let all of the walls collapse at your feet. Scream timber when they ask you how you are. Fine is the suckiest word. It is the opposite of here. Here is the only place left on the map. Here is where you learn laughter can go extinct and come back. I am already building the museum. For every treasure you unearth in the rock bottom, holy, vulnerable cliff. Say this is what pain made of you. An open, open, open road, an avalanche of feel it all. Don't ever let anyone tell you you are too much or it has been too long. Whatever keeps the stutterer from stuttering when he sings a song, you are made of that thing. You are made of that thing. That unbreakable note, that photography of you at 5 years old, the year you ran away from school because you wanted to go home, you are almost there. You're almost there. You are the same compass you have always been. You are the same friend who never left my side during my worst year. You caught every tantrum I threw with your bare hands, chucked it back at the blood moon, said, it's okay. Everyone's survival looks a little bit like death. And I wrote a poem called Say Yes while I was cursing at you for not letting me go. Best friend, this is what we do. UCI community, this is what we do. We gather each other up. We say the cup is half yours and half mine. We say alone is the last place you will ever be. We say tonight, let's stay inside reading Pema Chandran while everyone else is out on the town. And Pema will say, only to the extent we expose ourselves over and over to annihilation can that which is indestructible in us be found. And you will say, Pema is so wise. And I'll say, yes, she is. And we are too. Angels of the get through. Thank you to each and every one of you for being angels to the get through and for being here tonight and holding space and letting folks know in our community that have been impacted by interpersonal violence that they are not alone and we can be angels of the get through for them as well. I want to remind people that there are some notes in the caption of the YouTube video explaining how you can continue to participate this evening. We do have a live slideshow happening. I believe the link is in the caption. I was trying not to look at both screens so I wouldn't get distracted. Also, we will hold a virtual speak out this evening. All of that information is also in the caption. Look at the caption and participate in whatever else you are feeling connected with and comfortable with. And I'm gonna ask Mandy if there's anything that I missed or you would like to say anything as we close.
No, I don't think you missed anything. Aside from the feedback forms, we do have, is it working? Okay. We do have feedback forms for anybody who participates in any part of the event, and they are also located on each of the pages of the event, including the virtual map. We would love for people to offer your feedback to all of our keynote speakers, to the committee who did such an incredible job. They would love to hear from you, and to all of the different participating organizations that put a lot of hard work into crafting activities and information for you to engage with as part of tonight's event. So please fill those forms out. We will still be giving out t-shirts as we have every year, and that's the way that you'll get those, as well as be entered into the opportunity drawing. So definitely check it out. I want to just thank again all of our speakers tonight who have done such an incredible job of inspiring us in different ways and bringing light to so many aspects of violence, and also different perspectives on what it means to cultivate resilience, which is our theme tonight. I want to thank you all for being a part of this event and look forward to seeing everybody's participation in the virtual march and welcoming you later to the Speak Out. Thank you. Good night.